Well, hello, everybody. This is Dan from Trim the Wick Podcast. We are so excited to be with you this week. We have something special for you. Knowing that it's February and the love season, we wanted to do a special marriage podcast. So we did a live stream just a couple days ago, and we're going to split up this live stream into two separate podcasts. And so we want to just encourage you with these podcasts. And the first one is going to be on communication. So if you want to improve your communication and have the understanding of the importance of communication in your marriage, we hope you tune in to this special edition of the Trim the Wick Podcast. Well, hello, everyone. We are finally, we believe we're live. As we are having our fun, first time
in a long time.
Technical difficulties. But that's okay because we are up and running, and I believe that we are on. So there we go.
All right.
Well, hi, babe. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. And, it's always when you're doing things like this, and, it's easy when you're just recording stuff. Because you can just hit stop and then go back and edit it out and stuff like that. But when you're live, there's a little more stress.
Pressure.
A little more stress.
And when your cameras don't do what you want your cameras to do.
Yeah, and everything just wants to, not work all at the exact same time. So,
but hi, y'all.
Hey, how we doing? Well, welcome to the Trim the Wick Podcast live stream. We are so excited with you to be with you guys tonight. I'm Dan.
And I'm Becky.
And so we are going to have a little bit of fun with this tonight because we know that we're going into February.
Right.
And it's the, Valentine's season and everything.
Right.
So we thought that we would take this time to do basically a little marriage seminar type thing, but we just wanted to do something different, but we also wanted to share some great information and some things that we've learned over 33 plus years of marriage and everything that we've gone through. So,
right. And we're going to try and keep it, within an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour. We like to talk, and once you start talking about things, the stories from 33 years kind of may bubble to the surface a little bit.
Yeah, because, 33 years is a long time. I don't know if you know this, but 33 years is a long time. So we want to make sure that we share with you guys all these things, not follow too many rabbits.
Right.
But we want to share with you guys some stuff about marriage. We want to encourage you because believe it or not, after 33 years, we're happily married.
We are.
And we like being married to each other.
We do.
And not only is it, I believe the best way for a man and a woman to live, it's God's ordained way.
Right.
That we are to come together and become one. And I just think that we need to put more emphasis on marriage because it's hard work.
It is. And, we've had friends that asked us, it really got us thinking the one time. They looked at us and they said, okay, we know you've been married a long time. Even though you were going through hard times at various points in your marriage, in those hard moments, would you still say you had a good marriage? And I would say absolutely yes.
Definitely.
Even when it was hard, even when we were struggling and upset and hurting, it's been a good marriage, and largely because of these three pillars that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Right.
We did work.
Yeah. And just so you know, we didn't have a perfect marriage from the very beginning.
No.
And
we were 18 and 19 when we got married. We didn't know nothing.
We had no idea what we were getting into. But also, we've had things happen to us, from job loss to losing our home to having, death in the family, to all these things that you have, everyone deals with. We've dealt with as well. So it's not like we're been super blessed that we've not had anything happen to us.
Nobody has a picture perfect life.
yeah, we've just believed that we've worked really hard on our marriage, and we want to share those things with you, so that you can work hard on your marriage.
Yes.
And your marriage after 33 years or 45 years or 50 years or even 3 years can be happily married.
Yeah.
So
let's dive into it. What's the first pillar? You already kind of alluded to it.
Well, here's the first thing that we really believe is important, and everything, I think, everything funnels through this, because I was looking at some different facts and different things that have been put out on marriage, and of the main thing that causes marriage problems is lack of communication.
Right.
And when there's a lack of communication, there's things that, get misspoken. There's hints. There's things that turn into, hidden things and
Right.
and stuff like that. And when you aren't properly communicating with each other, I think that causes so many more problems. So the first thing, our first pillar, if you haven't caught on, is that communication. Communication is the key.
Right. And we want communication that connects you together. That's,
Right.
So we have found that there are some subsets that build that in you. And the first one is understanding your partner's language.
Yes.
We don't speak the same language largely.
Exactly. Well, I mean, there was a whole book on, men's from Mars, women from Venus, or whatever.
Right,
and that really focused on how we are very different and how
Right.
we look at things and how we communicate.
Well, and when you're getting into a marriage, you're talking about bringing different backgrounds into it. You're talking about bringing, anything that you've thought was normal communication in your family, you're bringing, and it might not be the same.
Right.
That was normal communication in your spouse's family. So you really have to learn to understand each other's language and not stomp your feet and huff off and go, you don't listen to me.
Right.
So part of that, and a small little plug here, one of the things that we offer is the DISC assessment test for couples that will help you identify your communication style.
Yeah.
And better understanding yourself helps you see some of those hangups and helps you communicate with your spouse more effectively.
Yeah. Well, and we're kind of like the opposites on the, on how you communicate. I'm more of a boisterous.
Yeah,
that's the word. I like to have, I exaggerate, I push things. If I'm telling something, it's, it might've only been 2 feet high, but it was at least 15 feet high, and, it's a thing where that's the way I would talk. I would talk over the top. I would talk about, just big. And then you were a little more subdued, and you wanted to know facts, and you wanted to know, what did this all mean? And I was kind of like just throwing out the big picture.
Well, and I need to know the whys behind things. Okay, you're thinking that, okay, you're feeling that, but what are the assumptions you're making? What are the whys behind? So you need to understand your own communication style and your spouse's, or there's going to be a lot of misunderstandings. And when you misunderstand one another, then it leads to assumptions.
Right.
And all. But part of that too, not just your communication style, but part of it is knowing your spouse's body language.
Yeah. Yes.
When they're kind of retreating back into their selves, or there's a great old song of the 77s.
Yeah.
No, it's the choir. It's the choir.
Oh yeah.
It's called Listen to Her Eyes. And it talks about, if your love is more than words, you need to listen to her eyes. And that goes both ways. You need to listen to his eyes. You need to really make an effort to pay attention to when you speak something that you're just kind of going, well, but it's my nature to tell you brutal honesty.
Right.
You need to pay attention to when your spouse winces at that and goes, ouch, that,
Yeah, that was a little too much.
That was a little too honest.
Right.
A little, speak the truth in love, please, because that hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes, we talk about how family dynamics in your past and everything also play into your communication style.
Right.
And if you are someone who was brought up into a family that was a very over the top, boisterous, again, using that word twice.
You like that word.
Twice tonight. But, or you were very argumentative in your families.
Right.
And then you have someone who is not argumentative at all. They actually talk about going back, shrinking down. You can see sometimes when someone who is has that argumentative past or whatever, and that's how they solve problems. That's how they communicated.
Right. To them, they're hashing through an issue and working through a problem, and the other spouse is just kind of going
shrinking and shrinking.
I can't even get heard here.
So you need to understand those things, and those are the things as a couple you're going to have to talk through. You're going to have to experience. I truly believe experience first, and go, wait a second, this is a problem. And that's that thing of watching body language. Right. If you're having an argument, and face it, couples, you're going to have arguments.
What?
It's part of it.
It is.
I can remember we had, here's a great story. So I remember when we first got married, our first apartment was about 500 square feet.
Yep.
And literally you could stand in the middle of our apartment and see every part of the apartment. It was that small. Well, we had, one of those, new couple little tiffs, as you would call it.
One of the signs that the honeymoon was maybe over and we moved into some real life.
Yep. And so we literally started arguing, and we had to realize that we had to take a break from it. And you couldn't go anywhere because the apartment was so small. It was this tiny little place. So literally we actually went to the separate corners like we were in a boxing match, so that we could calm down. But your style was much more get things out.
Right. I don't like unresolved issues. I want it all on the table, and then we can work through it.
Yeah. And I was more of I'm going to sit back, and I'm not going to argue. I don't want to fight as it is. And so, we learned early in our marriage that, okay, these styles that we have, these personality things, these things that we've brought into this marriage, we've got to pay attention to them.
Right.
And we've got to make sure that they don't destroy us.
And that we're making space for each other.
Exactly. And they're not hindering us in our communication, because, everybody talks, and you're going to talk to your spouse, but how many times are you actually communicating with your spouse? And that's the thing, is you want to make sure that you're communicating and connecting with your spouse. What's one of the other?
So as you're doing that, actively trying to listen and pay attention, you're going to start finding that there will be times when you're really doing a good job trying to listen, and you really think you're kind of getting it, and yet you hit this wall of where you just either you can't get your point across, or your spouse is really frustrated with you because you're not understanding what they're saying. And a lot of that comes down to you having some filters where you can't hear appropriately. You're listening. You're really listening for understanding, but there's something, either baggage in your past, a way you view yourself, that you make an assumption that your spouse views you.
Right.
There can be all kinds of filters that we bring to communication. And if you hit one of those points where it's just like, you're talking and I think I'm hearing you, but we're still just, it's just not clicking. It's time to maybe do that. Take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Go, I need to take a breath here and think for a minute, and don't just think, pray.
Right.
And go, God, what am I not seeing about what they're trying to tell me? What am I not hearing? Because I want to hear.
Right.
I want to communicate well, but this is frustrating because we're both actually trying, but we're stuck.
Yeah. And I do think that, again, bringing up the past baggage and past things where things were said to you by another guy or another girl. And sometimes when someone says,
teachers or parents, it doesn't, not just romantic relationships, but just things that you have had spoken over you.
Right. Well, and if they say the same thing, even though they may not be meaning the same thing,
right,
they say the same words or they say it in the same tone or whatever, you immediately revert back to that, abusive moment or a situation where you now shut them off. Right. You now put a wall up and you're like, I can't listen to you anymore. And it is that filter that you put up in front of you that then your partner has to struggle,
right,
to really break through and to communicate with you.
One of the filters that I brought to our relationship, and you knew it about me because we had dated for long enough. Right. We were high school sweethearts. We had dated for years, but so you knew this about me, but I don't think you realized how deeply ingrained it was. I didn't realize how deeply ingrained it was. I had a very perfectionistic view. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that there was, it was partly my personality, and it was partly because of some expectations in the social realm that I grew up in. But I came to marriage with a heavy weight of self-imposed expectation of perfection.
Right.
I was going to be the perfect wife. And what that meant was that anything that you said that you were displeased about or didn't like, that was a judgment to me.
Right.
I will never forget. I asked you the one day, we had been married maybe 6 months, and I had grown up working in the kitchen with my mom. Mm-hmm. I had cooked, and I asked you, I said, do you like potato salad? And you said, yeah, I like potato salad. And I went, great. I'm going to make some potato salad for dinner. We can afford that. It's, we'll have that as a nice side. Well, here's the thing. Becky didn't know how to make potato salad in small batches. Becky did 5 pounds of potatoes for 2 people.
Yeah.
there was a lot of potato salad.
A lot of potato salad.
And what I didn't know is that the style of potato salad that I grew up with was not the style of potato salad that you grew up with.
Right, because my parents were Northerners and your parents were Southerners.
I grew up with Southern potato salad. So I made this absolutely ridiculously massive batch of potato salad.
Right.
And you came home and you politely ate kind of a half of a serving of it. And I went, what's wrong? You told me you liked potato salad. And you went, well, this isn't really what I'm used to. And it's okay. And that destroyed me. Mm-hmm. For what?
It was weeks.
It was
weeks.
It was not pretty. But that was, you didn't mean to hurt me.
No.
There was but because of a filter that I brought to the communication, I heard, you're not a good cook. You can't make food that I like. Mm-hmm. You failed as a wife. Anything that you make, you're going to have to really earn your way back. And it just about destroyed me. So that it was not what you said at all.
No.
It was not what you meant at all, but because of some internal filters that I had, it was a real bad miscommunication.
Yep.
And we worked through it. But so you've got to be aware of those things in yourself.
Yes.
That there are filters that you just bring. And if you hit an impasse, you need to recognize those things and kind of root them out and then go, okay, how do I heal from this filter? How do I learn to hear openly and clearly?
Right. And there's this process that you're going to go through as you continue to talk and continue to communicate, as you pull these things open, that there's going to have to be those moments where, like, you came to me and you said, but what you said destroyed me. What you said. And I'm like, but I just said, and you're going to have to understand that you need to give forgiveness where forgiveness is.
Yes.
And you're going to also be able to hear it and go, even though that might sound silly to me, I'm not going to make you feel bad.
Right.
Because it's silly, And a lot of times we make our spouses feel bad because what they're upset about or their hang up, their filter, their thing, that it's a silly thing. in the grand scheme,
but it's not silly to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where that communication has to come in. That's where you've got to be able to talk through it. You got to be able to pour on the grace and the forgiveness,
right,
so that you can communicate and listen without assumptions.
Right.
So,
yeah. and then so the other listening without assumptions piece is not attributing negative motivations
Right.
to your spouse. In that instance, I could have looked at you and gone, you did that on purpose.
Right.
You wanted to hurt me. You set me up. You told me that you liked potato salad, and then I made this massive batch of potato salad, and you're not going to eat any of it. You set me up.
Yep.
That was not your motivation at all.
No, it was not.
And so you've got to, in that forgiveness and grace that you give, you have to be real careful about withholding judgment on what your spouse meant by that.
Exactly.
And what their intention was. Because, you married this person. You didn't marry them because they were, because they were a jerk who had your worst interest at heart.
Right.
Assume the best of your spouse.
Exactly.
Assume that if there's a misunderstanding, it's not a deliberate seeking to undermine. And we're setting aside, yes, there are abusive relationships. I get that.
Yes.
You need to be aware of that if there becomes a pattern. But by and large, when you're communicating with your spouse,
Right.
assume the best of them.
Yes.
And it will help you receive what they're actually saying.
Right. And here's another thing with communication. Here's the number 3 under this, is that when you're going to talk, you've got to make time to do it. Yeah. When you're going to communicate, you've got to set time to do it. One of the things I think we definitely did this as a young couple, is we just said, oh, we'll just figure it out as we go. Or we'll just not even think about it.
Yeah, we'll just, of course we're going to talk. We talked while we were dating. Of course we'll talk.
We'll talk. Instead of actually setting time to talk about certain things. And when I say about talking about certain things, it's talking about the stuff that we've just been talking about for the last 20 minutes.
Right.
And these issues and these things, so that you can start working past them and start getting on that same paper, that same sheet of paper, so that you're communicating. One of the things with going back to our personality styles and things, mm-hmm. how we're basically opposite on the chart. So having that time of being able to go, this is what I like to listen. This is my, communication love language.
Right.
This is your communication love language. Okay. How do we make these things work? How do we talk to each other? And the way you do that is that you're going to have to set time. You're going to have to go, you know what? It's a Thursday night or whatever. We've got to go on a date night, not to go do something, but to actually talk, to go to a coffee shop and just sit and talk about some issues, or, make time at home.
It doesn't even have to be talking through issues. It can be talking about, okay, so tell me about when you, and bring up a time period in their childhood that you're aware of, or, that getting to know one another deeply, that helps give you some clues into what their filters might be, what, how they receive things well, how they don't receive things well. The small things in communication that you can do that just make them go, "Aw, he's mine." It's not always about making time for the heavy stuff. You do need to make time for the heavy stuff, but you need to make time to just be together, so that the communication begins to become a natural, normal flow.
Right. I was reading a thing, and they were talking about one of the biggest problems with young couples, is especially when you have kids, is that you're always exhausted. You're always tired when you have young children. And so you work your whole day, you finally get the kids to bed, and you just either turn on the TV or you go pull out your phone, and you just start, scrolling your phone and stuff. And 2 to 3 hours later, 4 hours later, it's now 11 o'clock at night or midnight.
And you got to crash because that alarm's going to go off in the morning. And
so, make sure that you are actually putting aside time, that you don't have the remote, you don't have this phone out, and you're just talking about different things. Guys, I'm going to talk especially to guys, when we go to work, if your wife comes home and she's been with the kids all day or whatever the situation, she goes to work and you go to work, make sure that you're asking her questions, not just on, hey, how did your day go? But ask her actual direct questions about her day, and certain things, because that is going to just open your wife up to share with you. Plus, it opens your eyes to what she goes through the day, because a lot of times we think that we just work, and the wives work. Yes, they work, but we work. And
what you're spending your time on. You don't know what your spouse is spending their time on.
Exactly.
And you've got to, and listen, if you've got kids at home, it's okay. It is okay to park those kids in front of a 30-minute video so that you guys can connect for the day. It is okay to tell them, hey, listen, mommy and daddy need to have a talk right now, and you know what? They might destroy the living room while you're in the bedroom and shut the door. That you can clean up the living room again. It's all right. Make that time. If there's something that needs to be said, get it said, and get it said when it needs to be said. Make time for one another.
Exactly. The last thing on this with communication is kind of the encouragement is that, communication is a team effort.
Yeah.
And you're both going to have to give. You're both going to have to receive. It is a team thing. It requires both of you to make it be successful.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. It's not a competition.
Right. It's a team sport, but you're both on the same team.
Exactly. You're on the same team. You're not on separate teams because you guys are working together for the same goal. And so, just make sure that you're always putting in the back of your head that you guys are working together as a team to have better communication and talk better to one another.
And what that does, if you keep that pulling together mindset, it helps you to remember when the communication starts hurting or when your feelings start getting a little, you get your back up about something. It helps you to remember that we are on the same team. So we're both trying for understanding.
Right.
We're trying for understanding so that our team wins.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to do one quick little commercial type thing here as we keep going with our live stream, is that we mentioned the DISC assessment. And the DISC assessment is an amazing tool that helps you understand your personal communication style and your behavior style. And this is something that Becky and I do. This is something that I facilitate with my partnership and the partnership that we have with John Maxwell team. We do these DISC assessments. It's going to tell you a whole lot about yourself.
A whole lot.
Your communication style, your personality style. And then we can do a debrief with you to explain how you and your wife or you and your husband, how your styles match up, or like ours, how they're complete opposites. And we can help coach you and help you through the process of having better communication by understanding your style better and understanding your personality. So just want to put that out there. If you want to know more about that, you can go to our website at trimthewick.com. And if you're interested in getting that for you and your spouse, you can go to Dan at Matthew257.com and send me an email and let me know that you want that, and I will get back with you and we will get the ball rolling.
We'll get it scheduled.
So that you can take that DISC assessment, you and your spouse. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week. We hope that this message of building communication between you and your spouse, really encourages you and helps you. Well, we wanted to tell you that next week we'll have part 2 of the live stream that we recorded. And next week we're going to be talking about intimacy and sex. And also we're going to talk about unity, 2 major things that help build a strong marriage. So thank you guys again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week on the Trim the Wick Podcast.